Hi, it's Penny here, and today I'm going to be doing a book haul talking about all the books that I have acquired over the last month or two. Most of these I bought from thrift shops, some from the library free bin, and there are two that I actually paid full price for. But I'm going to go through these from cheapest to most expensive, not including the last two books. I've got 18 books to talk about. They only cost me $14, so I think that's pretty good bargain hunting. So let's start with the free ones, because you might see that some of these free ones are not the best quality, so maybe not the best bargain, but it's free, so like, it's worth it. So the first book I got is Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. This is the first book in a trilogy, the Book of the Ancestor series, and we have this school of assassin nuns, I think. I don't really know much more about it than that, but I do know a lot of people really enjoyed this series, and I did want to pick it up at some point, so for free, why not? So I got that one from the library free bin. Outside my library they have a little section of free books, updated all the time, or at least every time I go there seems to be new books. I also got Closer to the Heart by Mercedes Lackey. So Mercedes Lackey wrote the Valdemar series, which has something like 50 books in the series, and it was one of my most favorite series when I was probably 11. I started reading it, and then right through my teens I was reading it. It was probably my introduction to proper epic fantasy. This one is actually book 2 of a trilogy set in that bigger Valdemar world. So in the Valdemar series there's all sorts of magic going on, but primarily we're following the heralds of Valdemar, who all have these different magical abilities, and they get chosen by these magical horses to represent the kingdom and try to make things better. So this one is from one of the later trilogies, and so I have to admit some of these later trilogies that I've tried I haven't liked as much, but I thought for free I'd pick it up. It is also the second book, so I'd have to come across the first book. I think it's very unlikely that I would purchase it at full price or even get it out of the library, so fate will have to intervene if I'm ever going to read this book. But it was free, so I picked it up anyway. Then the last book I got just a couple of days ago when I was walking home from walking with my sister. On my way I go past this little free library, and I thought I would check what was in there at the moment, because I don't think I've checked it since pre-lockdown, because it was closed during lockdown. So I was very excited when I saw in there Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson, because I really love the story. I love Brandon Sanderson. I would love to have copies of all of his works, and to get one for free would be really cool. Unfortunately, it is fairly damaged, so I don't know how I feel about that. It's definitely completely readable, like none of the text is damaged, but this corner is a mess. So I'm wondering if I could do some kind of book repair on it. I don't know anything about repairing books, but I mean, it's a great story. Just because it's got a little bit of damage doesn't mean it's not valuable. So I will say this particular story I think is one of the most complex magic systems of Brandon Sanderson's that I've read. I found it quite hard to understand, even harder than the Stormlight Archives. We've basically got people who are able to draw the colors out of things and create magic using that, but there's also this concept of having breaths, so everybody has a breath and you can accumulate more breaths, and the more breaths you have, the more powerful you become. There's also these people who have essentially come back from the dead, and they have breaths donated to them, so they are essentially gods, including this one who has 50,000 breaths or something, and so he's amazingly powerful. But we follow this girl who ends up marrying him, and everything is not as it seems, as is often the case in Brandon Sanderson books. Anyway, I have already read this one, but I'm excited to actually own it, even if the quality is somewhat debatable. Okay, then we move on from my free books to my $1 books. So I have a pile here of books that I picked up from this book fair. We were actually going to the beach and we drove past a sign that said book sale on today, and I said, let's stop by that book sale. So it was a charity book sale. They were selling the books for $1 each. I got 7 books, although I actually paid $10 because they didn't really have any change, and why not? It's not like I'm going to be broke because I threw them an extra $3. So these are all the books I picked up. Firstly, I picked up Rusalka by C.J. Chera. I don't know how to say that. I don't really know anything about this except it seems to be some kind of Russian folklore inspired fantasy. And I have heard of this author before. In fact, I feel like I owned something by her before and then I got rid of it. But she is on my list of like authors from the 90s that I would be interested in seeing what they're like. So I added that to my pile. To be honest, I was trying to find 10 books so that I could pay $10 and not hassle them about change, but I couldn't find 10 books and so I just gave them the $10 anyway. Anyway, I also picked up The Martian by Andy Weir. So this is quite well known. A guy basically gets stuck on Mars and has to survive for some amount of time by himself. I have seen the movie, but I haven't read the book. And I have heard that it's really good, quite funny, makes the science really easy to understand. So I thought, why not? I'm not like in a rush to read it, but I wouldn't mind reading it. So for $1, why not? Then I have 5 books from the same series. So we have book 7 of The Wheel of Time. We have book 8 from A Wheel of Time. Book 11 from The Wheel of Time. Book 12 from The Wheel of Time, and book 13 from The Wheel of Time. So 5 books from the Wheel of Time series, 7, 8, 11, 12, 13. That's not very sensible. I haven't even read book 1 of this series yet. But the later books were written by Brandon Sanderson because Robert Jordan died and Brandon Sanderson finished off the series. Also, a lot of people really love Wheel of Time, so it is one I want to read. I don't know when I'll get to it, but I know I want to read it at some point, so I thought if I could get some of the books for $1, then I should. Also, like, they're not exactly the same editions, but they are about the same size, so close enough. And I mean, I think you can tell from the fact that I'm willing to accept that damaged version of Warbreaker that I'm not actually that fussy about all the books on my shelves being in perfect condition, as long as I've got lots of stories to enjoy. Oh, I just realized I was trying to go from cheapest to most expensive, but that's not right because now I'm moving on to 50-cent books, and 50 cents is less than $1. Anyway, another day I was walking past the Salvation Army shop on the way to the library, and I really should walk past because I already have way too many books, but something tempted me to go in and I ended up buying these 5 books, and then I had to go to the library and pick up another book, and I had to walk into the library with a pile of books and then walk out with a pile of books, the same pile of books, and that was weird. But anyway, these books. Firstly, I picked up the first book in the Custard Protocol by Gail Carriger. So I've seen a lot of people talk about a series by Gail Carriger and kind of this style of cover, but it's not actually this series. Once I got home, I looked it up, and the one that people say you should start with is the Parasol Protectorate series, and this one is like another series in the same world but set in a different time in history, because they're kind of like historical paranormal fantasies. So this is another one I don't think I'll read for a little while, but 50 cents. I make bad decisions when books are cheap. But the next 4 I'm pretty happy about. So the next 4 are all books from Robin Hobb. So I got 2 books from the Rainworld Chronicles, which I haven't read yet. This is the 4th series in the Realm of the Elderlings series by Robin Hobb. So the Rainworld Chronicles are a quartet. And which books are these in the series? 3 and 4. So I think I actually looked up and my library doesn't have the audiobooks of the Rainworld Chronicles, which is going to be a problem, but I'm gonna try and find them physically maybe, and maybe I'll read them that way. I mean, Robin Hobb books are often massive, but these ones don't look that bad. 500 pages and the text isn't too small. And I quite like the covers of these, like the pictures of the dragons are pretty cool. Anyway, so there's those 2. I also got Assassin's Fate by Robin Hobb. So this is in the very last trilogy of the series. I think it's the 3rd book. So this is the very last book in that whole epic saga. So when I get to this one, I'll be nearly finished. Exciting. Also, this one had a really cute little letter from their mum, I think. Dear Natty, love from mum. This ties up all the ends. So I guess that's a good sign that when I read this, I will feel satisfied in having read that whole series. But I do think it's going to still take me a little while, maybe all of next year. The other one I got by Robin Hobb is Renegade's Magic. So this is Book 3 of the Soldier Son trilogy, which I recently saw someone talking about. I forget who, but they were saying that this is actually quite a good series as well by Robin Hobb, although not as appreciated by other people. Again, I'll have to find the first 2 books in this series somewhere along the way, but Fate has been delivering me a fair amount of Robin Hobb books for cheap, so maybe Fate will keep delivering. Then I have another pile of 50-cent books, and these are ones just from the 50-cent thrift shop that's 10 minutes walk from my house. I, again, haven't been letting myself go there very often because it's far too dangerous. I'm trying to get to TBR 0, and none of this is helping with that. But regardless, firstly, I got The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This book for 50 cents. Something to think about sometimes is to think about the cost per hour of your entertainment. So if you go to a movie and say you spend $15 on the ticket and it's a 2-hour movie, that's like $7 an hour for your entertainment, right? It's about 800 pages. So 800 pages would easily take me 15 hours to read. At 50 cents? That's so cheap per hour, like cents per hour. I will say all the foil is kind of rubbed off a bit. Maybe I talked about this one already in my last haul, because I remember talking about the foil having rubbed off. I thought I divided this all up right, but maybe I didn't. Anyway, 50-cent book. Still impressed with myself. All I know about it is like an epic fantasy standalone where there are dragons from the west and dragons from the east, and one of those people think the dragons are good and the other ones don't like the dragons, but the dragons are different, I think. There's some kind of war. You know what? I don't really know what that book's about, but I like dragons. Then I also have Someone Like Me by Emma Cary, and I know absolutely nothing about this. All I know is that it's by Emma Cary, who wrote The Girl with All the Gifts, and the sequel to that, The Boy on the Bridge, and I really liked both of those, so it was 50 cents and I got it. Then lastly, I picked up Replica by Lauren Oliver. So this is a book, and to be honest, I don't know if I'll like it, but it's got this creative idea where it's the same story told 2 times. So you can read it from this side, starting with Gemma's story, or you can read it from this side, starting with Lyra's story, or you can like alternate chapters back and forth and then read the story in one go. So I kind of like books that play with like creative formats, so even if I don't like the story, I just want to see what the format of doing things like that is like. Something about clones, I think. Honestly, I don't really know. Okay, now we are up to the 2 that I actually paid full price for. So going cheapest to most expensive, firstly I bought Flight of the Fantail by Steph Mataku. So this is a New Zealand authored book, and I have forgotten what it's about. I think it's some kind of like spooky paranormal horror. A bus full of high school students crashes in remote bush. Only a few of the teenagers survive. Their phones don't work, there's no food, and they've only got their wits to keep them alive. And as if that wasn't enough, there are nosebleeds, pounding headaches, and erratic behaviour to deal with. Anyway, I've been trying to find more New Zealand authored fantasy, especially fantasy by Maori authors, and this counts for that. So I was excited to find it. I really wanted to have already read it. I haven't, but I've got it, so that's a start. And the other one that I bought that cost me quite a lot is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and I'm a little bit annoyed because it got damaged in the rain, and I haven't got around to complaining yet, but I'm super mad about it. Look at this. Ugh. Anyway, as I said, it's completely readable. It's just when you spend a lot of money on a book, you expect it to be in better condition than a book that you got for 50 cents. Don't you? Don't you? I think you do. Anyway, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Everyone's been talking about it lately. It is Victoria Schwab's newest book, all about this woman that makes a deal with the devil to make it so that she can live forever, but in return, nobody remembers her. And so she discovers that that's actually quite a difficult way to live. I've seen a lot of people really loving it. I'm a little bit scared whenever anything is that hyped. I'm a little bit scared that I'm not going to like it. However, I have loved everything by Victoria Schwab that I've read before, so that's a good sign, I guess. Anyway, so those are all the books that I have hauled recently. Do let me know if you have read any of them or if you're thinking about reading any of them, because I would love to talk with you about them down in the comments. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you're doing well, and I will see you next time.